Larry Fink, a name you've probably never uttered, a face you've likely never seen. Yet this man arguably has more control over your life than anyone you'll ever know. He's not a president, not a tech billionaire, not a general. No, Larry is something much more insidious. The CEO of BlackRock, the company that quietly runs the world. With over $11 trillion under management, yes, trillion, BlackRock is not just an investment firm, it's a global empire. And at its helm sits Fink, a man who by all accounts thrives in the shadows.
In our business is a business of people.
Right.
And if you don't have that cultural connection, that friendship, that continuity, it makes it harder to do.
Larry doesn't need the spotlight, said one former associate. He operates best where no one's watching, pulling strings no one even realizes exist. Let's talk about those strings for a second. BlackRock's portfolio is like a who's who of global influence. Amazon, BlackRock, Apple, BlackRock, Alphabet, Microsoft, ExxonMobil, you guessed it, BlackRock. Look up the top shareholders of any major corporation and you'll find Larry's company sitting comfortably at the top. They don't own everything, a financial analyst admitted, but they own enough of everything to have a say in almost anything. That's not hyperbole. When BlackRock speaks, boardrooms listen.
My biggest worry is not that we're not going to see a falling of inflation back to 3 or 4%. My biggest worry is the world is losing hope. We have seen a collapse in birth rates and demographics.
Now, to understand how Larry Fink rose to this level of power, you've got to rewind the tape to the early 1980s. Back then, he wasn't a financial overlord. He was a hotshot on Wall Street, pioneering the then novel world of mortgage-backed securities. Larry was brilliant, said a former colleague from his days at First Boston, but he wasn't infallible. That brilliance collided with hubris when a misstep in interest rate predictions led to a $100 million loss, a catastrophic blow that saw Fink booted from his position and his reputation left in tatters. People thought he was finished, another insider recalled. Larry doesn't do finished, he does comebacks. And come back he did.
Make sure whatever you do it with passion. And if you're not passionate about it, that's telling you something. The most successful people I know in my 38 years of doing this business, the most successful people are not necessarily the smartest. That's helpful, by the way, but it is not the number one requirement. It is passion.
After licking his wounds, Larry partnered with Stephen Schwarzman to co-found Blackstone. But the partnership was never going to last. Two alphas in one room, said someone familiar with their split. It was a matter of time before they butted heads. By 1988, Larry had broken off to start BlackRock. What began as a boutique risk management firm quickly ballooned into something far more potent, thanks to Larry's obsession with controlling the uncontrollable. Risk is Larry's religion, said a former BlackRock executive. He doesn't leave anything to chance. If he can measure it, he can manage it. And if he can't measure it, he'll build the tool to do it.
You have to force behaviors. And if you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, and ultimately it's still going to take time, but I am just as much shocked as Ken is that we have not seen more opportunities, and we're going to have to force change.
This mindset led to the creation of Aladdin, the in-house technology that transformed BlackRock from a powerful firm to an unstoppable force. Aladdin, which stands for Asset, Liability, Debt, and Derivative Investment Network, is essentially the brain behind BlackRock's operations. This isn't just software, it's a predictive powerhouse that analyzes trillions of data points in real time. Aladdin doesn't just see the future, one tech specialist said, it builds it. With 5,000 plus interconnected supercomputers, Aladdin processes 10% of the world's financial assets. Yes, you read that correctly. 1 in every $10 on the planet flows through Larry's digital brainchild. Aladdin is the reason BlackRock is always 2 steps ahead, said an insider. While everyone else is reacting, Larry's already moved. This predictive capacity gave Larry an edge in 2008 when the global financial system imploded. As the subprime mortgage crisis snowballed into a full-blown meltdown, Larry's phone rang. It wasn't just any call. It was the US Treasury. They didn't ask for advice, said a former government official. They handed him the keys. BlackRock was tasked with valuing toxic assets and managing bailout funds. effectively making Larry the architect of America's economic recovery. He wasn't just managing money, said another source close to the operation. He was managing the future of the entire financial system.
We were ridiculed by most of the financial community saying you cannot marry the culture of an active investor, who we were, and a passive culture. And we said, why? Our clients use both products. Our job is to be agnostic to our clients, to work with our clients, to provide a whole portfolio solution. But over time, more and more clients started to think about, how do I want to get an exposure? Do I want an exposure in this area or this product? And I could do that through actively investing in ETFs.
By the time the dust settled, BlackRock wasn't just a trusted asset manager, it was the asset manager. Pension funds, sovereign wealth funds, central banks, they all came calling. And they didn't just hand over billions, they handed over trust, the kind of trust that gives you unprecedented influence. Let's not forget the pandemic. When COVID-19 plunged markets into chaos in 2020, Larry was back at the table. This time, it was the Federal Reserve seeking his help. BlackRock was hired to oversee the Fed's corporate bond buying program. Think about that for a second. The Central Bank of the United States outsourcing its most critical crisis intervention to a private company. When you need a surgeon, you don't call a general practitioner, one Fed insider quipped. Larry is that surgeon.
The pandemic has different paths in different parts of the world. Countries like Korea have been much more successful in terms of dealing with a pandemic than countries like the United States or India or Brazil. Countries like the European countries, because of the vast savings rates of Europeans, they are more prepared to deal with this existential financial risk than many parts of America. At the same time, America, with its ingenuity and its strong science base, whether it's science base related to technology and remote working, or is it technology and biomedical research in terms of finding the right antivirals and the right vaccinations, every country is adapting in their own special way.
But here's the kicker. Larry doesn't just fix crises, he profits from them. While governments scrambled to stabilize their economies, BlackRock quietly expanded its portfolio. They were buying when everyone else was selling, said a market analyst, and they were buying big. Larry's power doesn't stop at markets. Over the years, he's become a vocal advocate for corporate responsibility, particularly in environmental, social, and governance (ESG) issues. Every year, his letter to CEOs sends shockwaves through the business world. Larry doesn't suggest, said a corporate strategist. He dictates. When he says jump, companies ask how high.
Well, Eric, as you know, I've always been a student of the world. And a few years ago, when I realized that climate risk is investment risk, and as a fiduciary to all our clients' capital that we're managing, it was very clear to me that I needed to spend more time learning about why climate risk is investment risk. In addition, it was very clear to me that we're not moving fast enough as a world, a lot of conversation. And as Bill suggested, we need to rapidly find ways of bringing down the green premium to move to a more sustainable world.
Yet, for all his talk about sustainability and social good, critics argue that Larry's motives aren't as pure as they seem. After all, BlackRock's ESG push has coincided with massive investments in renewable energy projects, investments that have been incredibly lucrative. He's not an environmentalist, said one detractor. He's a capitalist. Don't mistake one for the other. The conspiracy theories write themselves. A man with a predictive AI capable of tracking the world's assets, managing trillions of dollars, and advising governments in times of crisis. Is it any wonder some people call Larry the most powerful man on the planet? It's not paranoia, said a financial watchdog. It's reality. If Larry Fink decided to pull the plug tomorrow, entire economies would collapse. Despite his immense influence, Larry remains an enigma to most people. He doesn't flaunt his wealth or his power. Instead, he operates quietly, steering the course of history from behind the curtain. Larry likes it that way, said a former associate. If people aren't talking about him, he's doing his job right.
This is a very large problem. It's going to require multi-fixes. It's not one big fix. It's going to require helping the homeowners, helping the auto companies, It's going to mean stabilizing real estate prices. It means stabilizing some financial institutions that are under duress. It means closing some financial institutions that are probably not fixable and merging them with better institutions.
The question isn't whether Larry Fink is powerful, it's whether anyone or anything can stop him. And the scarier question, maybe he already knows the answer. After all, Aladdin would have told him.